Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here. Welcome back to some Mechwarrior 5 discussion. One of the things I've never heard anybody actually talk about is with the announcement of the new title being developed by Piranha Games, an unnamed title so far. We know it's single player and co-op. One of the things I've always sort of wanted to do is talk about things that can improve Mech 5, but also potentially a future product. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do and jump into here. And this isn't in any particular list, but this is things that I think would add a lot of depth and substance, which I think has led a lot of people to seek other stuff as far as mods are concerned. Whereas if the base game had a little bit more depth and substance, they wouldn't have to necessarily go to mods. Even though mods do have a place, I think there are amazing things to have. But of course, if some of the base games don't have it, they're going to seek that. Let's go and talk about the pilot system and the barracks in Mechwarrior 5. One of the things that I've just really not enjoyed is the fact of Mechwarriors aren't really anything to care about. You know, with the system of basically skills and then the random skills that they have attributes for, you tend to just get rid of Mechwarriors when you find a better one. And generally speaking, there's no connection to them. And in the game, there are some really special Mechwarriors as far as skills where they're maxed out at 60. Now, if you use mods, there's mods that already fix this for PCs, which is basically it allows you to, level up, Mechwarriors and improve their skills from the base stuff. So if you really like one of their avatars or maybe their voice lines, and by the way, there's some really funny ones out there talking to you, Bloodbag, you know who you are. So this is one of the systems that in a future game, or even in current future DLCs, which would be really nice to see improved. And that is basically that give a reason to care about Mechwarriors. I still remember Beast and Mantis and Rooster from Mech Commander, and that's from 1999, and that's a long time ago. Why do I remember them? I remember them because of their character, who they were, the voice lines and stuff like that. But this system, and that system, by the way, it let you build them up. And so when you lost them, not only was it a hurt, like, oh crap, I just lost Hunter, but they also were an asset to your unit and you just lost out. On this, the pilots are more of a, not liability, but just the fact of you'll build them up to, let's just say, Lieutenant Lena Santiago here, you take her from 22 to 40. Well, she's maxed out. You can't send them. So I think it'd be really cool if you had a system where you can send them to a training, center, or maybe you can put them in, sim pods. That's actually one thing that is sort of lacking in the game is that throughout all the novels and lore, Mechwarriors are actually able to go and train, and it's like real life combat to them, but it's in a simulation. And so they could go and prove their skills without having the physical, ability to get killed, right? So it's one of those things where it'd been really cool if you could have invested in your Mechwarriors and really kept them around, and a reason to hire Mechwarriors based on different skill sets, maybe background, knowledge. And again, if there was depth there other than just my pilot can hit a target or my pilot can't not hit a target. And that's really what it is. And with this being said, this is sort of like the mechs where it's like Pokemon. You go out there and you try to find your best pilots, and there's a handful of pilots that have unique voice lines, and they're a unique character, and you can find them out there. And that's cool and all. I just feel like, again, the ability to train up or specialize with a skill set, i.e. again, Mech Commander 2, you actually could train Santiago to be a ballistic specialist if you wanted on an assault mech platform, right? Now, she may not be as good on a laser boat, assault, but at least on a ballistic assault. So that, as far as the pilot system is concerned. Another thing too, I'd love to be able to see with this is the ability to rename your, Mechwarriors here. As a Twitch streamer, and again, I do stream on Twitch. If you haven't been over to twitch.tv/NGNGTV, I'll have a link down below. I like to be able to put, my viewers into my, matches and send them off on suicidal missions, or in this case, fun missions along with me and, all that fun stuff. But it'd be really nice if you had some type of system to be able to rename. I don't think you have to go super in depth as far as like backstory and all this, but if it's easy to do, if you can just go over here and edit and then you allow the player to be able to do that, that'd be cool too. But again, the ability for a little bit of a reason to keep someone around, except for as soon as they hit 40 and I need someone, oh, there's someone who's 50, I'm going to grab them right off the bat. So piloting system, I think could really use some work there. And I think that would be an overall benefit to, finding someone with a unique background and skill set, and then you just, for whatever reason, you like their avatar, you like their voice lines, and you want to connect and you want to build that relationship. With that being said, also relationships outside of that, we'll go ahead and move on, is your crew. And let's go ahead and dive into your crew, and that's something that I think sort of pertains to the pilots and barracks. Okay, on to your crew. Obviously, if you play any of the modded stuff, you probably don't have as much interaction with Fahad and so forth. But that's been one of my biggest gripes, is that there's no connection with your crew. Rihanna is in this, outfit, and you've got these guards that you have no connection with, which, by the way, it's the same 3D model as Fahad, and his weird, cold, dead eyes stare right into him. Anyways, one thing I'd like to see improved in the future is that you're on a dropship. Like, the ability to, if you're going to have a dropship and you can walk around, you should be able to go interact with and have maybe even just simple story interactions with them. Like, hey, Rihanna, where are you from? How did you become, the second, in command with my, father? Some historical background information would be really nice, especially considering the buildup of this game. They actually had a little bit of storyline with the main character, your father, and the mother. The same thing goes with all of your crew. The pilots that you should, have, why aren't they up here? Why aren't they standing around? And that's one thing that the Harebrained Schemes Battletech game did, I think, really well. I mean, obviously, you've got Yang and you've got your other characters that you build up a little bit of relationship. You can go ask them questions. And even though it's not a full dialogue, click adventure where you know every little bit of detail, you at least have a little bit of connection. And, say you hire a new Mechwarrior, you should be able to walk up to them and have a simple dialogue, like, where are you from? Maybe they don't want to talk about it, but at least you have that option. So there's a little bit of connection. And maybe based on the events that occur, maybe you do a mission and that Mechwarrior doesn't feel comfortable with the result or what you did or what you had to do, being a mercenary. Maybe they're uncomfortable with you going up against the farmers, and maybe you should have chosen, maybe you have to deal with that. Stuff like that, I think, really brings the, human perspective, right? That we're going to make choices as a mercenary, and you have to live with them and stuff like that. But as far as the crew's concerned, in Mech 5, the lack thereof of any connection whatsoever is very, 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 very telling. And I feel like that's a really missed opportunity. I understand this is like a sandbox, but again, if there's a sandbox just full of no interaction except for, again, standing here. Another thing that I want to point out that's more of a gripe with Mech 5 is the fact of it had you go from right here down to where Fahad is normally standing, and then back up here, which is really frustrating. I don't understand why. Maybe just have Fahad standing right here, maybe, or even right here, and you could have interacted right here instead of having to walk down. But that's a side gripe, regardless. Connection with your crew really matters. Having an intimate, understanding of where they're from, where they're going. I think it'd be really cool to see, again, Mechwarriors come and go. Maybe the contract's up. Maybe you have to negotiate, and, the Kellhams, are offering a better offers, sort of thing. But the crew, having a relationship, having a what and why. Why does this relationship matter between you and Rihanna? Are you family? Is they always say mercs are only for money. Is that true, or is it more than just that? And I think if you're looking at a future title, make that connection with your crew member, your mercenary, because it is literally your family. You're counting on them to not give up, and just say, hey, give up. This isn't worth this, as far as their crew is concerned, that's one thing I'd like to see really improved. And, again, you can look at other games and storylines and story arcs out there that have that relationship with crew members, Star Wars, so forth and so on. But, all right, so that's it for your crew. All right, next up, I want to talk about mechs and customization. That's right, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent here, maybe even a controversial topic, but one thing that I felt was really lacking in Mechwarrior 5 that I felt like could be improved is customization in the form of mechs and what options. Now, you are on a Leopard class dropship. I understand that the Leopard may not have the full capability of stripping down a battle mech to its bare necessities and building it back up. That's fair. I actually feel like that's a pretty cool part of lore. But the one thing that bothers me a lot with mechs in Mech 5 is a lot of them are redundant. A lot of them are, I would say, useless, very, very unoptimal. If you're looking at a Cicada 2A, there's nothing you can do without mods to really make that mech shine. And I understand that they brought in quirks and, under the operations tab to give this mech this or that a little bit more, but those are small percentages, and it really doesn't change the fact of you have hard points on a mech and you really can't do a whole lot other than this. Now, this is a very unique system. I do feel like if you were to look at like, hey, this is battle tech, right? Like you can't fully, the engineering and information to be able to rip out an engine and all the electrical and myomer muscle fiber and actuators, all the bells and whistles. I get it. But this is a game, and one of the things that I felt like they could do was they could use the system for building up reputation in this game with houses to allow you to maybe visit facilities. And that was one of the arguments. Maybe it happens very rare. Maybe it's a really difficult to do. But the ability to change things out, like maybe you can take this grasshopper and get an Indo Steel or Ferro fibrous armor that would help on weight savings and so forth. But this also brings up another point, and I feel like this is going to be the controversial part. I think this needs to change. I think moving forward, I'd really like this. This is the tabletop build rules that I feel like is a step backwards. In the tabletop build rules, by the way, you could swap out any engine, but if you look at the tabletop build rules, there was no point in even having variants. It was just like Grasshopper and, awesome. You didn't need anything else. Obviously, with the introduction of hard points, a la Mech 4, what they did, and of course with MWO and Mech 5, is now variants are unique. What hard points, what weapons can they do? But also with that, in Mech 5, the fact of you can't swap out engines. So a mech may literally have a standard engine and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, well, that makes mechs with XLs more valuable. Sure. But you wouldn't even know that it has an XL engine. There's no information telling you that it's got a, XL engine. There's also the fact of Indo and Ferro. In lore, Indo and Ferro are straight upgrades. There's no, by the way, this isn't lore. This is just a system, a game system design with a set of rules. In lore, Ferro and Indo are straight upgrades. It usually went to the frontline units and then, it trickled outwards. I do feel like the critical slot system, even in MWO and this game, I think really needs to go the way of the dodo. I think Mech 4 was onto something where they sort of looked at it and said, do you really need that? Because again, it doesn't really make sense to me as a player, but also just as a logic. If you have a mech that has ammo, why is that ammo in the legs? That just doesn't make any sense why you'd put ammo down here. I mean, it's this weird, jigsaw puzzle Tetris game that you're doing with, I got this many free slots, and so I'm going to put it over here because they go after to me, it's an old system that I think needs to go away. And by the way, if you're listening to this, I'm not saying customization goes away, but I do think Mech 4 had something to be said. You want this mech to go faster? Hey, it may still have a max engine, but there's a click up and click down button. Takes up tonnage. Hey, you want jump jets? Well, does the variant have it? Well, maybe you have a checkbox. If it does, it doesn't. But you're not going in here and saying, hey, the jump jets, I want, 3 to be in my left torso and 1 to be in my CT because I have a thing of, you don't, it gets rid of all that. Same thing with oh, hey, you want ammo for this AC-20? You would just go up to this little checkbox, just sort of like this, checkbox up and down, and it takes tonnage. it makes more sense that way, in my opinion, than this sort of weird system. I know in the past, Russ has said this is more of a hardcore experience, but I have to push back on that. I don't think this is hardcore whatsoever. I just don't think it's very imaginative. I think what they did is they didn't really think about, like, okay, so you took Mechwarrior Online, and you can see all the complications that min-maxing has, but you also have min-maxing in different forms in this game. When you have this game and you can take a Trebuchet and you can take a Centurion, right? Both 50-ton mechs, but the Centurion is actually better for LRMs, because if you strip everything off of it, the Centurion had a smaller engine, a 250 or 200. Yeah, 200. So you could actually fit more in the Centurion for LRMs than you could the and it's this weird sort of game of just like min-maxing. So it already happens. You get a Cicada 2A. I love the Cicadas, but like they're literally pointless without mods in this game. So as far as customization, I'd really like to see something done there. This is one of those things where I know a lot of BattleTech and Mechwarrior fans may push back on and say, no, don't you dare. But moving forward, this IP needs some imagination applied. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it is like a Mech 4 system. I think Mech 4 was headed in the right direction. Same thing with like hit locations, and we can get into that on another topic. But like, if you have something just needs to change. It's old, and it doesn't serve the game I think very well. Now, I understand, like, you can have a very complicated system that's still easy to understand. And again, what they did is they introduced these quirks. For those that are unaware, these quirks, you could start basically attaching them to mechs to give your mechs basically quirks like MWO. So you could give this something so it has more armor and stuff like that. I just feel like that's tacked on to what this is. I don't really understand what this is trying to do, other than it definitely shoehorns certain mechs into just being obsolete, I guess is the term, and some mechs rising to the top. So again, you need a way to understand what's going on with this mech. Like, I don't understand why you can't upgrade internal structure or ferrofibrous armor, or maybe triple strength armor muscle fiber. That's another thing too I'll point out, is that no Mechwarrior game has ever since Mechwarrior 2 at least, has never made one of the things that makes mechs very unique, is that they have a skeletal structure with synthetic muscle fiber. That's what makes everything work. And the fusion engine powers the armor, which, again, allows them to move like humans, and animals and so forth. But as far as the customization is concerned, I really do think something needs to evolve here. And one thing that I've seen other content creators do is use mods. But all they're doing is they're just loading up these crazy min-max setups, which is fine if that's what the system is, to like one-shot things. And, when I read the novels and stuff like that, that's what the sort of game has divulged into, and we'll get into my reasons for that. But as far as customization, I really think, role warfare was never really established in MWO. And unfortunately, BattleTech by HBS, it wasn't established either. Mods have done a really good job. But in Mech 5, this game quickly devolves into you need the biggest and baddest mechs because they throw more and more at you. And all that being said, I'd love to see your guys' ideas. What systems? Do you think a Mech 4 system would work where, yeah, it has a slot system, but it isn't set up to be this, like, you have to have 12 slots here, and you hot swap, and you have to worry about crit slots, which, by the way, this isn't lore. You never heard Victor Davian complaining about how many slots his, clan Direwolf that he had. No, it's again, it's a set of rules that was designed. I just feel like this does also too, is this doesn't look modern. I think there's someone creative, someone with imagination and foresight could create something better than this, that still is BattleTech, but is forward thinking, or maybe it takes a little bit of inspiration from the past games. I don't know. Let me know in the comments how you guys feel about customization in the Mech Lab. But I've said this before, I don't think you necessarily have to have a Mech Lab like this. I do think you need to have customization, and that's really the crux of it. I think there needs to be customization, but to what extent, and what does it look like? In this case, you have a Mech Lab with slots and this weird puzzle system of basically like fitting things in, and that also creates other issues where other mechs are again obsolete. So I'd like to see an improvement. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. You can call me crazy. I feel like there's something that could be improved there drastically. All right, we talked about mechs and we talked a little bit about gameplay there, about tonnage becoming the only factor, what really matters. One of the things that has really bothered me about Mech 5 is the wall of text, but also the lack of depth and substance when it comes to missioning, planning, and prep and execution. Let's take this for example. We have a lot of text here, which is fine. I think there's something to be said about having some connection with the story and lore and stuff like this. But one of the issues I have is that a lot of this text that you see is often repeated when you get in game with voice lines, but could have been voice lined here. And so I'll go and say it. I think if you're going to have missions like this and this much, me personally, and I know this may cost a lot, but I'd rather it be done, is have this read narrated. I think there's something to be said there because, again, that's just my expectations of games nowadays. I think if you're going to have this much text, or instead of this text, how about I have this interaction? How about I'm sitting at a terminal because I'm on my dropship and I have a 3D holovid and I'm interacting with this person, or maybe it's a recording of a ROM, and it's there and you see the person and talking and stuff. I'd rather see that than just a wall of text. So that's one thing. The other thing here is the lack of being able to plan and prep for missions. And this is one of those things what really stands out is the lack of in Mech 5. Instead of Mech 5 having missions, Mech 5 has game modes. And so in a mission, if I had a mission, if I was deployed, or in this case, if I was deployed in a combat zone in the inner sphere as a mercenary, I would want all the information available to the area I'm going to be operating. I'd like to know, I'd probably scout it. What's the op for? What are the dangers? What kind of, personnel do they have? Equipment, armor, mechs. What kind of air assets, do they have a QRF on standby? What is the entire what about a picture and surveillance of the area? Okay, maybe you can't get surveillance. How about a hand-drawn sketch by, one of your scouts? Maybe you got a farmer that is working with you guys and can sketch out, stuff like that. That's one of the biggest things in this game that you have completely lack of thereof. You just literally drop in, and because of that as well, there's no tactical presence. And as far as Mech 5, what you do is you negotiate here, C-Bell and all this, and then you drop based on a game mode. And again, the problem with that is you can't necessarily there's no risk versus reward. In a mission, you drop, you have point A, point B. Now, I'm going to say this is sort of a side note. I understand that a lot of the career missions and these special missions are linear. Outside of that, though, the normal sandbox gameplay, regardless of the mission, it's pretty much you go in and you wreck. One of their latest missions that they actually introduced a really cool mechanic where you could sort of be sneaky and you gotta go collect these informations. And if you set off the op 4, you could deal with them really quick. There's no depth and substance outside of that, though. But that mechanic's really cool. For instance, sensor towers. Who remembers sensor towers from Mech Commander? You set those off, the entire map converges, right? Same thing here. You don't know the enemy force, right? And I think there's something to be said about like a complete unknown, sure, oh shit moment. Yeah, sure, okay. but not every single mission. You do not do that. It's bad. Also, with the mechanic of you taking damage in this game, that's why they allow you so many mechs, is because the difficulty ramping in this game is based on how much damage can you absorb. That's going to take time to repair. That's why you need another set of 4 mechs, right? And because of that, instead of throwing good skilled pilots at you and making a few individual units really good and stuff, what they do is they throw literally wave upon wave. And this goes back to the game modes. You're playing a game mode, not a mission. A game mode where literally it could be they're throwing a full battalion regiment at you that's on this weird backworld planet. So again, I know I have a lot to say here, but my point being is this is something that's really bothered me, that there's no planning and prep and execution of a mission. There's no way to check where you land, what drop zones you are. What about extract points? If you do have a mission that has reinforcements, they're literally appearing sometimes right in front of you, right behind you. You get no heads up that, hey, just like, for instance, even if it was like, hey, you have about 5 minutes, you've set off the alarm, there's going to be reinforcements coming in. There's none of that, and again, it's sort of fourth wall breaking. So you can, let's say you drop into one of these missions, a beachhead mission, and you hit these things optimally, you do really well, but it doesn't matter because how the respawn or how the difficulty mechanic is, they just drop units right on your backline and you're going to take more damage. And then your AI lance mates, if you're playing with AI lance mates, take a lot of damage. And then so that mission's a wash because literally the amount of damage you took compared to what the mission is worth, it just isn't worth it. And that's why like multi-missions usually without mods aren't a good idea. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if you plan and prep and execute properly, you should be rewarded. And maybe you go in sneakily and you take out the, sensor towers. Maybe you take out a power generator that shuts down turrets, or that you have gates and turret controls that you can take over, you can hack. That's one thing that even Mech Commander, I keep going back to Mech Commander, guys, because it had a lot of features that I felt like it's a game that's 20 plus years old that would really translate well to this. Another issue I have is the lack of ability to issue commands to your lance mates using the map. I'll use Beachhead mission. I brought this up when it first came out. When you have artillery that starts getting called upon you, you can see the direction it's at. And if I have co-op, I can just tell, hey, dude, go destroy that location over there in, whatever grid. But you can't do that while pulling up the mini map in Mech 5. So even if you wanted to, you physically have to go over there. You can't say, hey, go to this grid location, or hey, go handle, this or that. You can't like say, hey, go handle these objectives or sub-objectives or tertiary objectives. You can't pull it up and just issue commands, which I think would be really cool. And again, maybe there's expansion there where you can drop in your own tanks. Maybe there's you've got QRF on standby, but it takes 5 minutes and then you can call them in. Or maybe you can counter a battery and have artillery and stuff, and your own infantry guys go set up, or tanks, or whatever, armor or something like that. But the lack of prep as far as knowing where you're dropping, where the enemies are, and that I think comes down to a lot of the procedural. And I say procedural because their Mech 5 doesn't really have a procedural system. It's a quasi system, but it's all just one big square, and a lot of the times you're dropped on one side of the map and your objective is on the other, or it's here, there. It's just one of those things where I think that system is lacking. Also, there's no roads. There's no garrison patrols, really. It's just this weird system. And I feel like someone said it best earlier in my Twitch chat, which is, I just wish all the assets were there. You knew the difficulty going in. And again, I think what they could do is just make individual units more dangerous instead of throwing more and more at you. I think, and that those units don't just run blindly at you. If it's a locust with a medium laser that can never do anything, isn't just going to run, how about allowing you drop in an assassination mission, you set off alarms, which alarms who the assassinated target's going to be, and they're calling for extraction, and so you got to beat them to extraction. Or you're going to hit a ammo depot, and so the objective is to hit the ammo depot, but maybe you're a lighter sort of unit, you like quick and fast, so what you do is you hit a secondary or tertiary objective over here, draw the enemy forces away, and then you hit them, and then you get out of dodge without a fight. Or maybe you do want to be the Steiner Scout Lance and you drop all assaults, but one of the assets gets away because you're too slow when you set off alarms and just go in there guns blazing. There's no tactics or strategy. Yes, hold on, let me recount that. There's tactics and strategy on how to play the game modes that are currently in the game, but they're not missions. And I feel like that's what I'd like is missions. I think, by the way, there's something to be said about having a game mode, but I want to play missions. I want to know, generally speaking, what I'm getting into, where I'm going, where can I get out, exfilling, saying, hey, this is too much. We just need to get out of here. This isn't worth it. And again, more information, the better when it comes to that. So I know that was a long-winded way of saying missions, but planning and prep and execution, or the lack thereof in Mech 5, and the lack of depth and substance when it comes to the missions, and being able to execute on those is really telling. And I think it would, for me, that's what I'm looking for in a Mechwarrior game is, and by the way, Mechwarrior 3 generally told you and showed you a map of where you're going. And if the game already knows what map you're going to be on, they could show the map and maybe you could pick where you can go. Maybe there's areas where you can't land, right? Because you got to protect your dropship and the asset, or maybe it's a rented drop, whatever. It's not gonna take damage and stuff like that. So for missions in particular, I'd like to see more planning and prep, and that's the TLDR. Let me plan and prep and execute strategy. Whether that strategy works, I don't know, but give me the ability to do that. All right, one of the next thing I'm going to talk about is animation. Animation and art are things that I get a little bit particular about, and that's mainly because of the implication they have. For whatever reason, in MWO, mechs are gigantic. In Mech 5, it continues the trend. But one of the things that really bothers me is the lack thereof of organic animation. A lot of the animations in MWO or in Mech 5 and MWO are the same. If you notice, a lot of the animations, especially on like mechs like the Stalker, it's like they don't allow the leg to kick all the way out and go through a full width of motion. Same thing where you've got on the Grasshopper, the footfall is very straight and like this. In Battletech, mechs are like avatars of humans and of course animals, and I'd like to see that. One thing you don't see right now as I'm walking and I'm showcasing this is arm swing. Now, Phil, what happens if mechs have weapons on the arms and they're swinging them like this? How does it work? I feel like that's where it gets to imagination, where if you target a mech, maybe they snap up into the proper position, whether it's 90 degrees or all the way out, or even if it's like this or something like that. But the lack of arm swing makes it really funny, because I don't know about you guys, but if someone's running and they're not moving their arms like normal, they're probably a psycho and you should probably get away, or there's something wrong with them. It's like someone walking and they don't, swing their arms normally. It's a little weird if they're just, Frankenstein. You should probably run and go the other direction. But yeah, as far as animations, I'd love to see animations and scale come down. Mechs are not supposed to be, 10, 12 stories tall. Again, an Atlas is supposed to be around 12 meters tall, 36 feet, So it's one of those things where I don't know why that was chosen. but it is. One thing that you just saw there is, again, a mech that just runs right at you for no rhyme or reason. This is a handcrafted mission. So this is one of where, again, instead of AI, you know, trying to push back in a certain way, these are the type of things I think AI really needs to improve in this game. Or instead of, I should said improved, put, you know, the visual idea of improvement. I think it's one of those where there's a article about Halo and how they made the AI seem smarter just by audio cues. But again, let's not talk about that just yet. The animations and scale of this game. Also, I think scale also sets a more realistic expectation of how large mechs are. It brings infantry back into play. Infantry right now, if you use it as a mod, which by the way, you can get infantry on here, but they're a no factor. You don't need them in this game. If they're not on, you're not missing anything. The lack thereof doesn't really matter. Another critique I have about being in missions, this is a storyline mission. You'll hear a lot of text. Sometimes the narration, sometimes that narration will be during key moments in the battle. You are trying to not take damage and die, and they're doing a monologue. They're literally monologuing. It's that line from, like, you know, oh, you got me in a monologue, right?
Tracking on new target.
So here we have, I'd love to be able to issue commands here, but I can't tell them, hey, flank left, flank right. All I can say is attack my target, join me, stop firing, and, you know, I can say go to location, but I have to be pointing over here. I can't necessarily go to my minimap. And this is where the ability to control what's going on and issue commands and being tactical about it would go a long way. Now, this is, again, a scripted mission. This isn't your normal, you know, mission that showcases the proc gen, if you will. So we're just gonna go deal with this guy really quick. Also, that bothers me. Mechwarriors just eject. They're these blue orbs that just, you know, we should see the head pop open or something in more details. And the pilot parachuting down, you know.
All guns on shared target.
So there's that. Generally speaking, again, the lack of tactics here. The enemies aren't trying to flank. They're not trying to use range. They're just running at you mindlessly. And by the way, the difficulty, again, as I mentioned in this game, is you're taking damage. My units are taking damage, which means money. If they take enough damage, that'll cost me. If they lose parts, I have to replace them. And the lack of ability to control what your teammates do, or by the way, on beachhead missions, if you're ever wondering why.
It's an ambush. They'll be right on top of you in 5 minutes.
There you go. 5 minutes. So we got a heads up on that one.
To be facing this new threat. I'm withdrawing my unit from this engagement.
There's no countdown of like, hey, 5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes to GTFO or get ready. Again,
Third-party hostiles fall outside the negotiated objectives of this mission, and my men have already suffered heavy casualties. I'm invoking the self-preservation clause of our contract and withdrawing my men from this fight.
Negative, Dragon's Breath. You are to screen Oberstleutnant Miraborg and his detachment's withdrawal. They need you.
Respectfully, Overstay, that's not going to happen. We're not getting paid to throw our lives away just to preserve yours. Our thoughts and prayers are with you. Best of luck.
Has it been 5 minutes? Because I don't think it's been 5 minutes. Also, I have no idea what they're shooting here. I think it might just be a demolition mission. I think that's, again, this is a demolition game mode instead of a mission, and this is again on a custom mission. But that's also what have been my critiques, is these aren't really custom missions. They may be a custom map, but it's the game mode again. So we're right back to square one of, this isn't anything unique. This is just, you know, it looks unique, but it really isn't. And again, while you're trying to fight for your life here, you're getting, I think, sometimes some really cool story stuff, but you don't really get to hear it because you're trying to fight and not die here. That's what you're trying to do.
We need to get Miraborg's battalion out of there. Clear this field ASAP.
And I think there's something to be said about, like, okay, yeah, you know, there would potentially be comms and stuff like that.
Engaging shared target ID.
Again, what I generally do is just tell my friendlies to, like, team up with me.
Shared target. Here we go. Engaging Lance focus.
Oh, there we go. I have a catapult here. Yeah, there's things that
We'll get
again, there's no, you notice there's no urgency here. There's no urgency. I can take all the time I need, or do I need to get out of here? Do I need to extract? What's going on here? It says eliminate all the enemy forces. So it's one of those things where, again, like, you're playing a game mode instead of a mission of, like, well, why can't I just get out of here? Why can't we go where we just came from? Or, you know, like, there's no options to, you know, maybe turn on defenses or call in my own QRF or backup. And by the way, you know, my units are taking more and more damage here, and I have to pay for that. And that's also why you need multiple mechs. There's no strategy here. It's just big stick and bigger stick.
confirmed, Commander. Moving on target.
You don't have repair bays. That's actually another thing I'd like to bring up, is you don't have any repair bays. Why do you need are mobile field bases realistic? No, absolutely not. They're not. It's not realistic in the Mech 3 idea. But if your design is to throw literally tens, if not more, units at your unit, you have to get, like, I should have a break where that 5 minutes, I should have had a repair bay. I could go set my most hurt unit. But now what's happening is they're focusing down my stalker. He's going to take so much damage. I'm going to lose so many C-bills on this mission that it's not worth it. And that's where I have a problem a lot of the times with this game, is that it doesn't give me the option to be more strategic about things. You know, the stalker is just taking more and more damage. And by the way, for whatever reason, AI-wise, they go after the most hurt mech. Now you could say, well, that's realistic, sure, but from a gameplay perspective, I can't do anything. I can't even tell him to eject. I can't tell him, hey, you need to get to the rear. Now I could be basically like, hey, F3, get out of here. So there we go. That's what I have to do. I can't issue that on the mini map. There's no ability to do that. Right. Another thing to note is, like, that pilot, like, you should be like, eject, man. Like, get out of here. What do you, like, Or they should retreat. They're taking so much damage. Just get out of here. Instead, there's nothing, you know, and
Miraborg, we're almost done here. Hold out just a little while longer.
all of a sudden, magically, this is, again, it breaks the fourth wall of you have another dropship literally appear out of nowhere. I don't have the ability to tell them, hey, go get some repairs, rearm. This is a game mode, not a mission. And again, that's where I feel like it's a big letdown of,
Eliminating target.
you know,
Visual on requested target. Firing.
and of course they're gonna go straight for my most hurt asset.
New target, Shadowhawk.
Yeah.
Target acquired.
Now you can imagine as the difficulty ramps up, they throw more and more. So instead of just some mediums here, it's assaults, it's heavies, and literally by the end, all you've got is this shiny charcoal-looking, you know, units that are getting extracted and or at all because maybe they get destroyed.
Incoming missile. Target acquired.
I can't control the friendly AI or issue commands to them.
Target acquired. Heat critical.
Some of the units will eject if it's not special missions. They'll just eject if they lose all their weapons. But on like special missions, they won't. Or if they're assassination targets, they won't. Oh, there's melee right there. That was rude.
Left arm lost.
Heat critical.
Mechs do have XLs and LFEs, but they just, it doesn't matter as much because there's no detriment. There's no side torso destruction, which in BattleTech that actually makes sense because the drawback is they're super expensive and super rare. That's the, like, they are just that good. But in a like MWO, you have those balancing mechanisms. Yeah, you never read about a Timberwolf dying because it had a blow through of its left torso. Again, that's a mechanic that
Nullified.
That's the
was
last
introduced.
of them. Miraborg, we are on our way to help.
It's too late, Christian. We're pinned down. We'll be overrun by the time you get here. Get out of here. Leave to fight another day. Avenge us and save the Republic.
Thor, I'm sorry, there isn't more I could do.
My daughter, Tyra. Look after her for me when I'm gone, Christian. Give her and the Republic the freedom we've fought all our lives to see.
You have my word. I'll make sure of it.
I know you will. Goodbye, Overstay.
Godspeed, old friend. First dear, fall back.
All right, one of the next things I'm going to talk about is equipment in Mechwarrior 5. Now, granted, again, this is not modded. If it's modded, it does change things. There's a ton of different mods out there that introduces new weapons. But generally speaking, what I'm going to talk about is the tiers here of weapons. Obviously, you've got tier 0 all the way to 5. My general experience is you go to the highest tier, and generally speaking, I never give really, really good weapons to my AI lance mates until they get really good, because I know the fact of I could potentially lose them, especially if the weapons are on the arms, because for whatever reason, because of either mech scale or how the game works, the mechs take a lot of damage to their arms, generally speaking, first. And again, like I mentioned, prior, the AI will shoot the most damaged mechs, generally speaking, first, and if you're dishing out a lot of damage. So anyways, I feel like the idea about this, I see where they're trying, what they try to do, right? It's like the idea that you've got different manufacturers. Again, you can see Dragon's Breath here, but this one is Flame Tech, and this is Hot Shot, right? So you've got these different Firestorm, you've got these different manufacturers, and the idea is that there are just better manufacturers out there. The problem with that I have with this is that it just as soon as you get going, none of the tier 0 through lower tiers really matter as much, and you get to the point where you always have tier 3, 4, 5. You make enough money, you have enough coin, and then also it just doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And I don't know if it's not like you've got certain ACs have like a faster firing rate but lower damage per round, or you've got ones that are more that's sort of what they try to do with like burst weapons, right? Is that, hey, you've got this AC 10 that does 11 damage every X amount of shots, but then you also have this that does a little bit more, but you have to land your rounds. I do wish this would evolve as well. As I mentioned with the Mech Lab, I feel like the Mechwarrior weapons and the models they use for firing mechanisms needs to change, where Battletech lore is a lot more like real life. The idea of an AC 10 doing 10 damage, that is a tabletop rendition. In the novels, it's not called an AC 10, it's called a medium autocannon, right? It's called a heavy assault autocannon, it's called a Gauss rifle. In the lore, it doesn't do X damage, it has an X effect, right? And one thing that I think could translate is moving away from that, where maybe you get to choose. Maybe it's just different manufacturers, but this one fires a little bit faster, but chews up through more ammunition quicker. Or, hey, this one has a slower cyclic rate, but overall the round and caliber is bigger. More operates in calibers, whereas, light ACs go from, 20 millimeter, and then you've got your assault autocannons that can be upwards of 200 some odd millimeter, right? That's a big variance, and then you'd have different manufacturers that handle it. You'd have gravity-fed weapon systems. You'd have belt-fed weapon systems. There's going to be different types of systems in the Battletech universe. But I feel what Mech 5 did is they tied too much to the tabletop system, and again, named them AC-20. Now, yes, there's lore reasons for the acronym 20. Some of that has to do with the amount of rounds, you pull the trigger and it bursts fire, so forth. So there is some lore here, but I just feel like the idea of tier 0 through tier 5, it just sort of loses its reference point, and I feel like that can evolve. Same thing with like the missiles and so forth and so on. And as far as the equipment, because of the lack of customization, really, when it comes to the Mech Lab in here, there's really not a lot of equipment in Mech 5 and base Mech 5. You get into some melee weapons and stuff like that, but outside of that, there's just not a whole lot. Now, mods, of course, open it up, and they open up the Mech Lab, but as far as equipment and weapons are concerned, I do think there needs to be a reimagining there. Like when you read the novels, there's a lot. I don't think any Mechwarrior game has really captured what the novels describe. And I know that's a combination of weapons, the mechs, how they operate, animations, scale, heat systems, movement systems, sensors, radar, targeting. There's a lot going on there that brings the whole package together. I guess what I'm saying is, for equipment, and that being said, I just don't think anybody's really quite captured when you're reading that novel and they're talking about how the weapons operate. Really what it reminds me of, like, weapon firing today, obviously minus lasers and stuff like that. But we know what main guns look like. We have those. We have smaller and we have larger caliber, right? We have missile systems like, we have rockets and guided missiles. We know what some of those are. Some of them are a lot bigger than what are in mechs. But I'm just curious what other games out there and references, and even, you know, do you have an idea of what some of these can look like? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you more of a like I said, I look at this as being a BattleTech fan growing up. I just feel like some of this is still stuck in the past, and some of this, again, it's just sort of lost, like in a game design perspective. It just sort of muddies the water, and there's not really a whole lot of choice there. It's like, of course, you're going to go for the tier 4, if not tier 5. And because of, again, AI, you're not going to give it to them until later, or if you use the mods or co-op, then you allow them to do what they will. But the weapon systems themselves, another thing I'm going to bring up is PPCs. This has always really bothered me. PPCs are man-made lightning. Sit out on your porch during a lightning storm. PPCs that we have in Mech 5, MWO, HPS BattleTech, Mech 3, and Mech 2 are not what's described at all in the novels. In the novels, it is the bolt of lightning, which again would be more of a hit scan weapon, and the sound is reverberating. It's the cracking of the sound barrier and just the cacophony of noise and violence that it brings. And none of these, and that sort of brings me to my next point, which is none of the weapons really sound, yeah, get it, it's muddled, you're in a mech and it's not going to be, you're not going to hear all the sounds, but like, you never feel the violence of just the craziness that some of these weapons are bringing, or what's on the battlefield. And PPCs are described just like that. It's man-made lightning, and no game has done it. Why is there travel time? Why does this have a 1196 meter a second? That's not how lightning works. And again, it's always, PPCs are one of those things where it's described a lot, and it's never quite lived up to, again, what I think would happen if BattleTech were real, or you're there, right, in the description of the novels. So going back to equipment, I think you need equipment, Mech Lab sort of reimagining and again, animations and mechs and movement and scale to really bring that fully to picture. But this tier system thing, I see where they're trying to go, but instead of the tier 0 being good at range or this, what they did is they just basically ramped them all up, and you always want to go the highest tier if you have them available. And the other ones are literally, you might as well just not even give them to me, just give me C-bills. So they become redundant and pointless. Again, there's not like trade-offs and there's no tweaking here. That'd be another thing that'd be really cool to see, is maybe in a future game where you can tweak weapons. How about you get to choose, just like modern day, firearms, where you can put a comp on it. You can change the magazine size. You can change the trigger housing group. Maybe on lasers, you can change a power delivery system. On missiles, like maybe you can change the arming distances and stuff on the warheads. There's a lot of things that you can do outside of just this. And also you give choices, sort of like in modern like shooter games, where you have to make a choice. Do you want more control on recoil, or do you want the distance and the power down range? I mean, those are the type of things that I feel like could really change Mechwarrior, and as far as the weapon systems, to modern sort of what other games are doing, and sort of moving the envelope, instead of just this weird, in the past, sort of system. And again, I like the models are all the same too. That's another thing too, is like everything looks the same. So really the only difference is stats here. I think, that can be improved. Okay, let's talk about the dropship. The dropship in Mech 5 was definitely a showcase of RTX technology. It was touted by NVIDIA and, of course, Piranha Games, and it looked really nice. But outside of that, generally speaking, you can place the entire game just in this. And so that brings me to the point of, if there is a future project, is again making this an interactive space. And if you're not going to do that, I think that's actually fine. But again, to me, I know some people like walking around, but that's literally all it is. And it is sort of frustrating when you're doing career and you got to go from here back up there and talk, where you can't just, just hit a button, or like just start talking to him right here over the intercom system or something. But if this is a dropship and it's meant to be lived in, and you can see the scale, by the way, of just how large and these mechs are, make it interactive, so that there's a reason for you moving around and checking. And maybe there isn't a gameplay reason, and so maybe it's not the best to have it. But that's something that I think would be really interactive. Another option too is something to take from HBS Battletech is, just like the Argo, maybe you can choose upgrade paths for your dropship. Maybe you can only carry 4 mechs at any given time, but you upgrade and you get a 5th small base, so you can have vehicles or another mech or something like that. There are, I think, some cool lore stuff that you can do where, again, this is your dropship. You can do big upgrades, sensors. Maybe you can upgrade a scouting party or a recon stuff, but then the trade-offs, you could choose something else, and so you got to balance. Do you want better information pre-mission, and that you got a scout party recon thing that improves, or maybe that's also could be used for artillery or airstrike, something like that. There's definitely things that you could do for upgrades, just like the Argo, where you could sort of choose your path. But there's what I like in a lot of games is sometimes like you have to choose your poison, or choose your upgrade, but it limits you on other potential upgrades. Like if you choose that, well, then you don't get this. I think that would be a really cool idea. Okay, a big critique I'd love to see in the future is to get rid of this weird shiny charcoal damage models. I've never liked this. This is, to me, I'd rather just see small holes and maybe some punctures and some armor plates disheveled. But to me, I think aesthetically, if I was coming in on the outside, I'd be like, what in the world is this? You can, right now in modern day times, look at what armored vehicles look like when they're destroyed, and it doesn't look like burnt charcoal toast, shiny toast stuff. I don't even know what it is. So I really wish whatever that is would be improved. I've mentioned scale. I think mechs in Mech 5 are way too big. I don't know why the interpretation here has gotten bigger and bigger, and I think bring it down to scale. Again, you're talking about a 20-ton to 100-ton mech, and Atlas, in lore is supposed to be around 12 meters tall. Again, I look at what gameplay is, and sometimes these mechs, again, they're way bigger than they should be, and I also feel like that brings the human element in. To scale. You can scale mechs down. You could actually have infantry. They may be bigger role here, but mechs are substantially bigger than they should. The damage model, I've never understood that weird aesthetic. That's one thing I'd love to see change. All right, guys, that's just a handful of things that in the current Mechwarrior 5 and a future either DLC or the next title that they're developing, I'd love to see improved. Let me know about what you guys think. Do you guys agree that the depth and substance when it comes to mission planning and prep, do you agree with my statement that you're actually playing game modes instead of doing missions? Do you think the pilot and crew could be improved? What would you like to see there? Looking at the dropship and what potential upgrade pass or that you're living there or giving options, do you like the idea of something like the Argo where you can upgrade information and give choices to you as a commander of okay, I pick X but I don't get Y, but that also gives me the benefit of an airstrike or QRF or artillery. Do you agree with the issues with your AI lance mates and the lack thereof of finite control? What would you like to see? I know the mech customization and equipment is a hot topic and very controversial. I know that. I get it. If you're listening and you made it this far, I just want to say thank you again. If you enjoyed this video, if you agree with me or maybe you even disagree, click the like button. Let me know down in the comments. I will read through the comments and see what you guys think. You can join on Discord as well. That link is in the description. Let us know what you guys think. I just feel that for this IP moving forward, and to maybe even to a broader audience, some of the things I brought up, like the mechs and customization, and I don't think it always has to be in the mech lab that we've had in the past, present, or whatever the future is going to be. I think it can evolve and still be very battle tech, but I think the limiting factors here are really hindering some of the IP and hindering the Mechwarrior franchise, I feel. And I want there to be depth and substance, and I say that about it pretty much across the board. But let me know what you guys think. Do you agree on the weapon systems? Do you? I know the idea of going around and collecting all the mechs. It's very pokey mech. I don't find that challenging. I don't find that very rewarding. I said in the past, I think one of the downfalls of the Heroes of the Inner Sphere DLC was they missed an opportunity to make you the hero, that you get to choose a unique path and that you get to choose a unique mech to make special for yourself, and instead what you did is you just chased these not really handcrafted missions, and you did a few things and you got this mech. For me, I'd love to see a step up in production quality. I'd love to see really cool animation, character, facial features. I mean, I know Unreal Engine has a lot of capabilities. We don't know what the next title is going to be using. I'm assuming it's going to be Unreal 5, and if that's the case, it even opens up even more doors. Facial recognition, voice acting, story and plot and how they roll. And I feel like a lot of this is very important to the overall picture and landscape of making a good game. And I say landscape because I feel like Mech 5 was always supposed to be sandbox, and it got this sort of these story narratives. I feel like if it would have started with story, and I think a lot of people might agree, where maybe a linear path is the better route instead of this open sandbox. Because if you do an open sandbox, again, what's unique about this mission or this planet? Nothing's unique. It's just a mission. It's just a biome. It's you go on from one to next. There's nothing really there, and it takes so much to make a universe, let alone thousands of worlds or hundreds of worlds that you can go to, mean anything, right? And of course, outside of combat, what does that really mean? Like, can you go to planets and do other stuff? Those are the type of questions that I've always thought. On missions that you have, stuff might go wrong. Maybe you land and there's someone else there that you weren't expecting, or maybe you do set off an alarm and they're bringing in reinforcements, so you call in reinforcements. Maybe you land to do an assassination mission, and it's a military target, and guess what? They stand their ground and they call in major reinforcements. It should give you the option to get out of there, and or maybe you want to stick it through. There's a lot of things. One of the things I don't like about Mech 5 missions is, again, it's the balance mechanism between making C-bills and taking absurd amounts of damage without any realism. Wall after dropship wall just coming down, and it just breaks that fourth wall. And again, if you're going to do that, I feel like they need to take a playbook out of Mech Commander. Mech 3, Mech 4 all had mech bays, and there was a reason for it being you can throw more at the player. You can make sometimes the situation very intense. For instance, I should have been able to call in a mobile field base during that mission and send my stalker to go get quick repairs. Now I'm down to 3 mechs. I've got the 2 Op4 with me, Blue Force, but at least then he gets makeshift repairs and comes back. But I did that. So the risk was I'm down a mech, but the reward is I get a mech that get repaired, and then you can throw more at me. The balancing between C-bills, I don't like that system. Give me choice, give me tactics, strategy. If I execute well, I should be rewarded well. And I'd rather have smaller missions, or I'd rather have boring missions. Maybe there's a boring mission where I have a escort mission of some backworld, supply thing, and, down a forest road, and next thing you know, there's trees cut in front of me and I'm getting shot out from the left and right and I'm being ambushed. You don't have any of that. And so that's where it's like, I want to feel like I'm in the novels. I want to feel that. And I don't get that with Mech 5, and I hope we do with whatever the future either DLC is, or in this case, the next Mechwarrior title that Piranha Games is working on. But that's going to be it for me. If you guys, again, agree, disagree, let me know down in the comments. Hop on Discord. Hop on over to my stream. Like I said, I stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/NGNGTV. We have discussions like this. You can hear me rant about MWO. You can hear me rant about Mech 5 if you so ask. I want to love this game. I want to love Mech 5. These are the reasons why I don't love it, and I want to love it. So make me love whatever the next title is going to be, Russ. Make me love it. I love to. I want to play it. I want to stream it 24/7. Let's make it happen. Until next time, guys. Bye. Until next time.